Grelby. TV, your YouTube channel. Today we're here in our space on the western North Sea coast, because as some of you may have already seen, on Facebook, for example, or in a forum, we've received the Soundwall from MAG Theatron. These are the Avalon speakers and subwoofers. The whole thing is a system consisting of left and right front speakers, a center, and 2, 4, or as many subwoofers as you like, which together form a sound wall. You can install this either in a closed baffle wall or in an open baffle wall. In other words, in our regular stud frames filled with material. MAG Audio came up with something really special for these speakers because they wanted to show what's possible in the home theater sector. The speakers feature some technical refinements and details, and above all, they are highly performant. Now I'm just going to take you along on this little journey, show you the speakers that are set up here, and tell you a bit about them. And so that you don't just see me, my old Infinity speakers, or the already familiar MAG Audio M15 and S8, I'm going to turn the camera around and show you the speaker. So let's get started with what we're looking at here. Here we see a sound wall, consisting of the front left speaker all the way on the outside of the image, 2 subwoofers, the center speaker, another 2 subwoofers, and the front right speaker. The whole setup is designed so that you can also run it with just 2 subwoofers. In that case, you simply stand the subwoofers upright. They're just as tall as the speakers, about 1.33 meters, and just as deep, which is 35 centimeters, so you still get a closed sound wall, but it's about 1.20 meters shorter. This sound wall here is now 4.20 meters wide, 1.32 meters high, and 35 centimeters deep. That means you only lose a very small amount of space if you install this sound wall behind the speakers in a framed structure. You can see that we have small edges here. That's simply because of our uneven floor in this industrial hall. Normally, of course, the speakers are then properly aligned exactly on one plane, and thus create an infinite baffle when they are installed in a closed baffle wall. You're probably wondering what these grooves are for. They're not just there for design reasons, but also for a technical purpose, namely, to avoid or at least reduce interference and comb filtering. You probably can't avoid them completely, but maybe you know this. Between the speaker and the screen fabric, even if it's acoustically transparent, there are always some interference and comb filter effects. The sound, or in this case, the audio, is reflected back from the screen to the speaker, then reflected again off the surface, goes back to the screen, gets reflected again, and in doing so, it affects the direct sound signal. These grooves, which act like a kind of diffuser, are meant to prevent that from happening, so that these reflections are simply broken up and no longer reflected back to the screen at a 90-degree angle. Here we have 21-inch subwoofers with a power handling of 1000 watts, which, and now I have to take a quick look at my handy notes here. You're lucky you can't see this, but I don't quite have all the technical specs memorized yet. As you can see, I just printed out the spec sheet so we can be accurate here. The subwoofers with the carbon diaphragm have a sensitivity of 96 dB, a power handling of 1000 watts, so we can reach a sound pressure level of up to 132 dB. Running all of this at 4 ohms already creates enormous pressure, and if you set it up as a single bus or double bus array with subwoofers in the back as well, you can definitely simulate earthquakes at real-life volume levels. The speakers are also a completely new development. Here we have an AMT, an air motion transformer, for the high frequencies. This is a 6.5-inch AMT. In addition, we have a 4-inch titanium mid-range driver and a 15-inch woofer, which allows the whole system to play down to 32 Hz. The lower diaphragm is passively driven, so it is not connected to the amplifier. That's simply for sound quality reasons. Explaining that in detail would go too far for this video, but it works very well. This is also something you see from other loudspeaker manufacturers. It's not something unique to MAG Theatron. So each speaker also plays up to 132 decibels. That means if everything here were running at full blast, we'd be well beyond the reference level. So sound pressures, volumes here of 120, 125 decibels are definitely not a problem. But it's not just about the volume, it's also about the sound quality. And we're really looking forward to finally having the speakers hooked up so we can actually listen to them. We're going to take a quick break, Then we'll head over to the hall and I'll show you the amplifiers that come with it. One thing you should know, the speakers are active speakers. So they don't have built-in crossovers, which means you need the right amplifiers with DSPs, where you can set up active crossovers. These ensure that the woofers only get the low frequencies, the mid-range drivers get the mids, and the tweeters only get the high frequencies. So finally, before I move on, one more thing. Just like with the other MAG audio front speakers, the tweeters and also the mid-range drivers are angled at 15 degrees. This means that the tweeter and mid-range driver emit sound asymmetrically from the speaker, which helps to avoid reflections from the side walls. You also don't need to angle the speakers in. They automatically project sound toward the listening position at the proper seating distance, which is another advantage of these angled tweeters and mid-range drivers. All right, let's turn the whole thing off now. I'll head over there and be right back with you. So here we have the new MAG Theatron power amplifier for the tops, meaning for the front speakers, left, center, and right. We need a separate power amplifier for each speaker because the active crossover is implemented in the DSP of the amplifier. You'll see that in a moment on the back where the connections are. This amplifier is controlled using included software, that's why browser-based, so you can easily operate it right in your browser. We have every possible adjustment option here: parametric equalizers, graphic equalizers, filter slopes that separate the speakers from each other, and so on and so forth. All the monitoring is also done through the software, like temperature, load, and so on. All of the DSPs built in here are 24-bit, 96 kHz. DSPs that can also handle FR filters, so not just IR, but also FR filters. And yeah, that means the entire speaker is fully manageable. Up front here, as always, you can remove the front panel with magnets. That means you can now also see the filters that are in front of the fans. You can simply take them out and clean them, or if they're really dirty, you can replace them. Just clip them back in with the clamps and put the magnetic cover back on. The amplifiers for the subwoofers look similar, but of course have different power specs, because each subwoofer needs to be supplied with 1000 watts, so the amplifiers are a bit bigger. Here, each channel has a maximum of 500 watts. All right, let's quickly set this up and turn the whole thing around so you can see the backside too. It's placed on cardboard so I can turn it properly on the table here. As is common in the professional sector, Phoenix connectors are used, so you can securely screw the speakers into these individual compartments. A very stable connection that's actually standard in event technology. On the back, we also have 2 fans, then the classic on-off switch, and the power plug. Here we have the 4 analog inputs based on XLR. We have an Ethernet port. We have AS3, so you also have the option to feed in signals digitally, and 2 trigger inputs, so you can switch the power amp together with the preamp. The whole thing is Class D, so it's very powerful and energy efficient. In the past, there were always reservations that Class D couldn't deliver, but these days, Class D is used a lot in home theaters and event technology, so you really don't have to worry anymore that Class D won't provide the sound quality you might expect. This power amplifier was specifically developed for the MAG Theatron Avalon speakers. As you can see, I'll just grab the camera for a moment. Here you can see, we've received a lot more power amplifiers from MAG Audio, which we'll need for the entire project. Here are the subwoofer amplifiers as well, which are still packaged up right now. Let me take a quick look. The label is right here. What do we have here? Right, here we have a subwoofer amplifier in this box. And then we also received 4 multi-channel amplifiers from MAG Audio, which we'll need for the remaining surround and ceiling speakers. In this case, these are TDC 3200 watt models. All right, now let's head back. I'll put the camera up here this time and turn it around so I can give you a proper goodbye. That's it from me for this brief introduction of the new MAG Theatron Avalon Soundwall, the first one in the world to be delivered, and which is now here with us on the North Sea coast in Worcester. I'm already excited to see what it's like once I've hooked it up for the first time, even without a screen or any special room acoustics in our lounge area, how it all comes together and how it sounds. Of course, I'll keep you updated here on the Grobe YouTube channel and on Facebook. With that, thank you very much for watching. Wishing you all a great time and a wonderful summer. See you soon. Take care. Ciao. So, a quick addendum. What you don't have in your head, you need to store as data in the camera. Included with the power amplifiers are these brackets for direct mounting. So they're delivered right with it, allowing you to install the amplifiers in a classic 19-inch server rack to save space. Right here at the front of the amplifier, there are already the designated threads, so you can simply screw the brackets on. For people who don't have a server rack, there are also suitable feet available. These are machined metal feet that also have a rubber ring embedded in them, so they basically act as shock absorbers, as you can see. Can you see that with the camera? Yeah, you should be able to see it like this. These feet are also included with the amplifier. Of course, it's very important for people who are either using a server rack or a regular shelf to have the appropriate feet or the server rack brackets included in the package.